habits, traditions, roles, and expectations in our homes influence the hearts, minds, spirits, and bodies of our children and the nation. I'm Jody Chafee, and in this episode I'll be talking with Greg Denning of gregdenning.com and worldschoolacademy.com. We'll be discussing social leadership and world-class education and how parents can help cultivate character in their children.
Glad to be here.
So tell us, where are you calling from today?
We are in Germany.
Wow, awesome. How long have you been there?
We've been here like 9 months, and we packed up everything, and we're heading out next week.
Wow. You live an exciting life on the road.
Oh, it's awesome.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
we love it.
So tell us really quickly about yourself and what you do.
So first, the most important thing I do is I'm a husband and a father. We have 7 kids. Our new baby just joined us a month ago here in Germany. Yeah, it's so exciting. And we have been traveling for 10 years together, kind of traveling around the world, just having incredible adventures and doing some philanthropy and humanitarian work, trying to make a positive difference in the world and travel with our family and create that kind of family culture, which we're going to be talking about. And I actually am I'm an educational leadership mentor. So I teach personal leadership or self-leadership. I teach social leadership, humanitarian leadership, and really, I don't know, I love it. I love what I do. This is so awesome because I help youth and families. It's cliche, but I help them become their best selves. And that's what I do. I help them to reach their full potential and just really live in a great way. And so do that through mentoring services and through, adventures. We take them out on adventures around the world.
Awesome.
Pretty awesome.
Wow. So that how does that take you around the world? You go to where your clients are, or?
No, we go where we want to go or feel impressed to go. So we just love living wherever we want to live and have a cultural experience as a family. And most of my work is done from the internet, or I go off to it for a trip. And so we can live wherever. That's why for the last decade, we've just been kind of wandering around the earth, learning languages. We set up some nonprofit organizations. We get out and immerse ourselves in culture and learning and, do the whole world schooling thing. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Incredible. Wow. That's incredible. I'm sure a lot of people would definitely envy your life to be able to do that. So, for this podcast, talking about family culture, I'm really excited about this topic. I feel really inspired to talk about it, just because I think that our family culture can either make or break our families. And so I'd like to hear, what is your definition of family culture, and tell us why you think it's important and how it can help kids either flourish or flounder in the
Yeah, love it. Thanks so much. And I've been thinking about this and writing about it for years. I mean, talking about it for years. Because in my mind, when literally, and I wrote this quite a while ago in my own documents, when everything else falls away, family culture is still there. Mm-hmm. Like, culture is the default. So it doesn't matter what else is happening, family culture always wins out in the end. So, we can set up our goals and we can try to do this or that or the other, and we can talk nice and we can make these plans, but ultimately culture always wins. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it eats everything else for breakfast.
Yeah, right. Because ultimately, that's the feeling that we all come back to: is what is this that's going on in our homes? It's that feeling, and it's that identity that we have in our homes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the biggest part of it, and you hit it right there, is identity. And is, I've been studying. So I ended up, just briefly tell my story. I grew up in a broken home, and it was just a mess. And, speaking of culture, it was an absolute disaster. And I ended up out on my own at an early age, really just struggling, trying to survive, just completely on my own, afraid, insecure, lonely, shy, timid, just trying to figure things out. And I hated that. Those years were so hard, and I was just desperate to find the answer, the secrets to success, to family happiness. I knew it was possible. And I saw other people doing it, and I'm like, I got to figure this out. And so I've been studying voraciously for the last 2 decades how to do this stuff. And I still am studying like crazy, and I found the secrets and found the recipe. And ultimately, that's what it is. It's creating this identity, like you were saying, that is directly tied to behavior. And as you study all that, you study psychology, you study personal development, peak performance, it is intimately tied together. What you believe about your identity affects how you think and feel and behave. And so, like you were saying earlier, your family culture, we have to cultivate that identity because that will determine our behavior.
Awesome. So how, and it has to be intentional. As parents, you have to actually be conscientious about what the feeling is in your home, how you're talking to your kids, what your values are, what traditions and what stories you're creating, and retelling and things like that it could be what your family history or your traditions or, those things that you're retelling every year. And that's what creates their identity. So what are you doing in your home now to, obviously, that you didn't have growing up, but now you've turned around and you're cultivating this in your home. So tell us about, what are you doing to incorporate your kids' education as you study or family work or, what is it that your family values that you are working to cultivate in your family?
Oh, awesome question. And because of my own experience, my wife and I have been super intentional about this. I mean, when we were dating, we were talking about this kind of stuff. We were spot on, no, we're going to succeed. We're going to make it happen. And this is how we have to do it, right? And so we've set up, intentionally set up rituals that no matter, and our life's very unconventional. I realize that. It's very unconventional, and we love it. It's not for everybody, but man, it's for us. We love it.
But your lifestyle, it can be kind of maybe difficult sometimes to create the rituals if you're on the road all the time or you're changing your locations a lot. There's something inconsistent about your lifestyle, but at the same time, as a family, you can create something consistent that helps the kids to flourish. Yeah.
Yes, and we had to even be more deliberate about it because of that. A lot of people talk to us and are like, well, how do you have a sense of stability, right, in your family? Are you stable, right? And actually, we've created that culture that has unbelievable stability. It doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing, whether we're, overlanding. We drove from Alaska to Panama, whether we're driving around, whether we're flying all over. We lived in Morocco last year, in Africa, in a fully Muslim country, which was spectacular. We're leaving next week to go to France and then Spain and then Italy and Greece and Turkey. And so it doesn't matter where we are in the world, we have this culture of education, of tight family relationships, of serving, of being curious learners and helpers and embracing culture and customs and language wherever we are. And so we set those things up. And we can sit here and talk about this and big philosophy, right?
What is some of the language that you use with your kids to help them to be service oriented or to be able to be experimental with their education or things like that where there's more to it than just, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to be service oriented, but you have to what are some of the things that you say to your kids or some of the activities that you do to actually, bring those in? You talked about routines. What are some of those routines that you do?
I love it. You're right. Because we have to get it ingrained first in our own souls. I mean, it's got to be a part of us.
Yeah.
And then a part of them. And so, well, to answer that, I'll share kind of our whole educational philosophy. Right? I believe that the three main ways to learn and really get a world-class education and grow is through phenomenal books. And so you ask, what words are you saying? What stories are you telling? We're reading from the best books ever written. Yeah. Like we literally carry around 400 to 500 pounds of books with us everywhere we go. And people were like, get a Kindle. And we tried that, right? But we do audiobooks too. So wherever we're driving, we got audiobooks on. Wherever we are, we unpack our books and we're reading. And so what language are we reading? How are we getting this into our kids' mind? We're reading great stories. From the time they're born, they're hearing these great stories of heroes and heroines and people who are serving and make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
So that's one way. They're getting these books. The second way, element of learning is world-class experiences. It's experiential learning. And so from the time our kids were little, we were out trying to make a difference, trying to serve, trying to love. They see us modeling it.
Yeah.
And that is key.
So key, yeah.
That's key, right? They're going to see your parents modeling. We can talk all day, but we got to model it. And so we're taking our little kids, and honestly, it's inconvenient. And it is slow to drag a kid along to try to get something done. You're like, I could just get this done. But that's not the point, right? Yeah. The kids, they're helping. And so from very little, even when they're not cognitively going, oh, this is what we do, they grow up and just saying, this is who we are.
Yeah. Yep.
This is life. This is how life is. And so in their culture, in their identity, they're like, yeah, we help people. We love people. We serve people. We learn. We're not prejudiced or racist or holding back on those kind of things. And so we're very intentional about having really world-class experiences. We get out and make things happen that are like culture shock and like reality check and like, woohoo, right? The kids have awesome memories. And then, of course, the third fountain of learning is inspiration or revelation. And you try to facilitate that so the kids have their own aha moments. And it's so beautiful now when your kids just come into you and they're just like, Dad, I get it. I get it. I had this thought. I had this feeling. This is what life's all about, right? And you're just like, yeah, right? And if you can facilitate as parents those three things consistently day in and day out, that's when it starts to happen. So we read to them every day, mornings and evenings. We have our morning rituals that we do no matter where we are in the world, a hotel or home, whatever. We have rituals we do. We study from a sacred text, from the scriptures. We pray together as a family. We read from great books and have great discussions. We're memorizing. Our kids are memorizing. We have a book of quotes and poems and great things that we're just repeating every morning. And their memories are amazing. And they've got this stuff in their mind. It's going to be with them for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah.
And then we have conversations. We're out driving. We're out having an experience. We're intentional about, hey, did you notice that? What do you think about that? What are you going to do differently because of that? Or we'll stop a book and say, you hear that? Do you hear that story? And you start facilitating that, and they just embrace it as an identity.
Wow, that's awesome. That's incredible. That's really I don't even know how to add to that. I totally. That's amazing. I love that you talked about the morning routines, how to study from the scriptures and everything like that. It really starts there to cultivate. Because one of the things about this podcast I wanted to discuss with people is that there's, the kids, their hearts, their minds, their spirits, and their bodies. And when we are conscientious and we're intentional about shaping our culture, they'll be balanced. They'll be well-rounded kids, and you can't you don't neglect any one of those things. You got to help them to develop each of those things.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
If I can just share a thought with that real quick.
Yeah.
As we've traveled around the world together, 5 different continents over the last decade, really, two essentially. I've really had a great opportunity to work with families, work with individuals. I've done a lot of coaching and mentoring. I've worked with thousands of people. And you see that if one of those elements is missing, life gets so out of balance, and you find so much stress and turmoil and friction and frustration, and life just gets to be almost unbearable.
Yeah.
And so what I love to talk about and teach about is the Fantastic Five, right? So I call them the Fantastic Five. It's physical, mental, spiritual, social, and emotional. It's those 5 critical elements of our lives, and we have to have those individually, personally, ourselves. We've got to be on top of those things, and then we've got to instill that in our kids. Because just like you said earlier, if any of those get off, man, life gets
out of whack.
It's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And one of the thoughts that I had while you were talking about when people approach you about, oh my gosh, how do you have any structure or whatever? You know, when you're homeschooling kids, you could always get that, oh, what about their social identity or their socialization? And I always have to crack up about that because it's like, what more socialization? What is socialization versus social? There's a difference. And you have to address those needs, but socialization is different today than it used to be in a way. I think that we used to raise up kids to become youth and adults, and now they're becoming teenagers and young adults that there's a new psychological age definition that's like they don't even know what to call it because because it's this age between 18 and 25 that they just don't grow up,
Yep.
and there's more to it than just their social. It's
so
socialization is really kids can become socialized with their parents. You know what I mean? It's like if your parents are conscientious about helping them to develop good manners, good mentalities like you're talking about, then parents can have the capacity to socialize their kids and grow them up to become responsible and functioning adults, and in whatever environment that you as parents believe that is going to help them to flourish. And, you have obviously embraced that and taken it into your hands that whatever environment you feel like you should be in, that's going to help cultivate what your kids need in order to become great, flourishing kids. And they obviously they are, and so that's really powerful. So would you please go into a little bit more about what you do, how your work is helping other families to cultivate their family culture? You touched on it, but just to give my audience more insight into what you do in your work and to connect them with you and what you do as well.
So it actually fits really well with what I explained before with our educational philosophy, with getting in the best books, right? It's a liberal arts education, getting in the great classics, and learning how to really read a book and get into that educational side of it, right? Where there's study combined with literally life-changing transformational experiences. And so I do family mentoring. I specialize with youth. Great. I love youth. Love the youth. And so I work with the youth, and I have courses. We've set up courses for youth, and live mentoring and recorded mentoring just to help them, walk through all these principles and these ideas. Right? One of the big things I teach is social leadership, how to be like a social superstar. And my definition of that is that you can have a meaningful conversation with anyone, anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Where you are, race, background, rich or poor, men or women, whatever, age, it doesn't matter. You can have a meaningful conversation with anyone, anywhere. That's a social superstar versus somebody who's right has a hard time talking to anybody,
awkward.
Right? Yeah, it's awkward. It's terrible, right? So that's one of those elements. And then we created courses, and then I lead expeditions, literally transformational experiences, where we take people to Guatemala for a humanitarian expedition that just changes their whole reality, and we go serve and help people there. I'm taking a group next week to Morocco to get into, full-on Muslim country and one of the oldest markets and biggest markets in all of Africa. And we're going to go out into the Sahara Desert and stay a couple nights out there over the Atlas Mountains. I mean, just embracing a culture and tradition and history. They say the Berbers have been around for 9,000 years, and just to get into that whole world and Islam, right? Then we're taking a trip to Nepal in several months, and we'll go up. We'll take them to the base camp of Everest. We'll take them in to do some humanitarian work way back in the Himalayas in these really remote villages. And again, the whole idea is you're just expanding your mind.
Yeah.
You're seeing things you didn't know. You're just woo. And it changes you. It can't not change you. And so you're having these transformations in the great books, right? In great discussions, these colloquia.
Yeah.
And asking the big questions, getting the habits in place, getting your own culture in place, and then having these experiences that just shake things up.
Yeah.
And you combine that, it just is a world-class education.
I love that because, a lot of times you hear how kids don't develop these soft characteristics that people are talking about, the character developments, and they try to do things to synthetically promote these characteristics in these kids of having empathy or, all these kinds of things. And in reality, getting them out there and having experiences, talking to them about real life experiences or great literature and things like that, that's really the best way to get them to develop their character. And you can't do it academically. It's not an academic thing. It's a practical thing. And you have to, they have to see people in their element in order to develop empathy, and they have to see, get out there and serve people and do things that are going to change their hearts. That's awesome. That's really cool. I love your work. I really appreciate you and that this is what you're doing, and you go all over the world, and you can affect so many people's lives because you're living this nomadic dream.
It's awesome.
Can
I share a quick story?
Absolutely.
Just to illustrate exactly what you were saying there. We took these girls from, we took a whole group actually of affluent youth and just great youth. These are great youth that I was down there with. We took them to to Guatemala this time to help with some indigenous people that hardly even spoke Spanish. And one day we divided up the groups to go help these families, and I ended up with 5 girls from the United States. We went to serve this family, and we were carrying all this stuff in their supplies to help them because they're starving down there. Malnutrition's terrible, and so they're literally starving. They've nothing, and so we're going to help them learn to grow their own food in the square foot garden boxes and just help them be more self-reliant. Right? We're helping people help themselves. It just worked out perfectly. And so I take these 5 teenage girls in between the ages of 14 and 17. We go in there. We get to this family, and it's mom and her 17-year-old daughter. Daughter's name was Santa, and mom's name was Maria. We're up in the high mountains in Guatemala, and we start helping them, working with them, and we quickly realize mom's blind and really can't do anything. And so I'm speaking to Santa, and she's all right with Spanish. They speak cachiquel. And I'm like, well, how'd you learn Spanish? Oh, the nice people in the village are teaching me Spanish. I said, Santa, you're 17 years old. Have you ever been to school? Nope. Not a day has she ever stepped in school. And I'm translating here for these 14, 15, 16-year-old girls that are with me in the group, and they're having this huge reality check. She's just like us. Never been to school. I ask her, Santa, do you know how to read? Nope. Where's your dad? He died 10 years ago. I said, who provides for your family? I do.
Wow.
I said, Santa, what do you do? And she sews these gorgeous skirts, the cortes, the skirts for the indigenous people, their dress. And I said, how long does that take you? And she says, 3 days. I said, how much money do you make? She said, about $7. And here's this sweet girl, 17 years old, never been to school, trying to learn Spanish, trying to provide, take care of her blind mom and her little brother, providing for the family. And you can imagine how these girls from the States were standing there with me, listening as I translated and saying, she's just like me, I'm just like her. Look at these different worlds we live in.
Yeah.
And the reality check, the life-changing experience that was for them, it was awesome. Oh, it was awesome.
That's incredible. Awesome. Well, tell my audience where they can get a hold of you, find your work, and get in touch with what you're doing. Where can they find you?
Yeah, I love it. I have 2 websites, gregdenning.com, GregDenning, gregdenning.com, and worldschoolacademy.com. Our 2 sites. We got tons of free resources on there and tons of videos and posts and some courses to help families just become their best self, to build in that culture where they can really live their life mission and purpose and reach for that potential. I just wholeheartedly believe every person has so much genius and potential in them, and they just got to let it out. You just got to tap in there and let it out.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
No, I really appreciate it. Just love it. Love your families. Be real diligent and deliberate about creating those cultures. Sit down with your family, identify, just get absolutely crystal clear about who you want to become and how you want to live, and then just do something every day. Just work on a little bit every single day to make sure you're moving in the direction of your dreams and your goals, and you'll build that culture, and that culture will become a part of who you are, and you'll live it. You'll create it, and it'll be awesome.
So awesome. It's so true that family culture always wins. It's our default. It's what we always come back to. And Greg's got an amazing program. He's got a great thing going, and it's incredible to talk with him and learn from him what a world-class education really looks like. And it's true that if we are prepared to visualize what our family should look like, or what we want our family to look like, that we are developing a stellar family culture. And it involves reading good books and giving kids great experiences and having solid discussions with our kids. Those are the 3 elements of a world-class education. So thank you again for listening. You can check out the show notes of this episode number 3 with Greg Denning at homeandfamilyculture.com. Please rate, subscribe, comment, share, listen on Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, or on the website of Home and